Hello students and welcome back to Standard 9 English Kumar Bharati Unit 3 3.3 poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. We have already learned and discussed in detail about the poem. Now in the second part we will be discussing the rhyming scheme of the poem, the figures of speech used in the poem and also the appreciation of the poetry. So let's begin first with the rhyming scheme of the poem. Now let's focus on the first stanza of the poem. In the first stanza, the first line, the last word would, it rhymes with the third line of the first stanza stood and also with the fourth line of the first stanza could. So the rhyming words used are here would, stood and could. Whereas the second line of the first stanza both, it rhymes with the last line of the first stanza undergrowth. So here we have the rhyming scheme used here A, B, A, B. Now let's come to the second stanza of the poem. In the second stanza, the first line, the word fair, it rhymes with the third line of the second stanza where and also with the fourth line there. Whereas the second line, the last word claim, it rhymes with the last line of the second stanza same. And so we have the rhyme scheme used over here is A, B, A, B. Third stanza. In the third stanza, first line, the last word lay, it rhymes with the third line, last word day and also with the fourth line, last word way. Whereas the second line, last word black, it rhymes with the fifth line, last word back. So here we find the rhyming scheme used here is A, B, A, B. The last stanza, that is the fourth stanza. In the first line of the last stanza, the word sigh, it rhymes with the third line, last word I and also with the fourth line, word by. Whereas the second line, last word hence, it rhymes with the fifth line, that is the last line of the poem difference. So the rhyme scheme used in the last stanza is A, B, A, B. So throughout the poem we find that the rhyme scheme used in every stanza is A, B, A, B. Now let's study the figures of speech used in the poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and the figure of speech used here is personification because the non-living thing roads are given the human quality of separating. Next line, and looked down one as far as I could, and figure of speech used here is inversion. The words are not in proper order, but the correct order of this poem should be, and I looked down the one as far as I could. The next line, though as for that the passing there. And the figure of speech used here is alliteration because the sound of the is repeated for creating poetic effect in the poem. The next line, oh, I kept the first for another day. The figure of speech used in this line is exclamation because the strong feeling is expressed in this line. Next line, yet knowing how way leads on to way. Repetition is the figure of speech used in this line because the word way is repeated for creating a better poetic effect. Next line, and be one traveler, long I stood. Inversion is the figure of speech used in this line because the words are not in a correct prose order. The correct prose order should be, and be one traveler, I stood long. Now let us see the appreciation of the poem. The Road Not Taken, a wonderful poem by Robert Frost, combines rustic simplicity with hidden, indirect and implied meanings. The poet describes a place where he sees two different roads moving in two different directions. It holds out a moral that life is a continuous journey full of divergence every now and then. The rhyme scheme of the poem is A B A A B. The whole of a poem is a metaphor, and due to the use of metaphor in the poem, it has created a emphasis on the importance of different decisions we make in different situation of our life and also their impacts on our life. Along with metaphor, there are other figures of speech used like personification, inversion, and alliteration. The central idea of the poem is about making decisions, be it right or wrong. We have an option of selecting where we are going and how will we reach the goal. Robert Frost explains that there are two ways, one that only a few people choose to do. The roads we take and the decisions we make end up making significant changes in our life. I hope students you all have understood the rhyming scheme of the poem, the figure of speech and appreciation of the poem. So this is the end of the session of the poem The Road Not Taken. Thank you students.